Hello, Exalted Ones. Here we are with issue 72, the review. So let's go ahead and get started on this. So first thing we're going to talk about is the Acushnet, Hondo Ohnaka's frigate. So let's get started with that. Piracy was one of the main scourges on the Outer Rim during the Clone Wars, as rogue starship captains and other riffraff turned to profiteering from the instability across the galaxy. Of the many pirate groups, the Ohnaka gang, led by the Weequay Hondo Ohnaka, was one of the most successful. After learning the tricks of the illicit trade on Bunta, where he had served Porla the Hutt as a cupbearer and advisor, Hondo Ohnaka had run off with a couple of other servants to start a new life. The life they chose was that of piracy, and before long Hondo and his gang began ambushing ships traveling in the remote region of space situated between the corporate sector and the Tyon hegemony on the planet Farana. Located in wild space, Hondo stumbled upon an arsenal of starships from a collector of antiquities. Uh, aside from six flare star attack Uh, Aside from six Flare Star class attack shuttles, the first prize was a Corona class armed frigate begging to become Ohnaka's flagship. Sure enough, Hondo managed to acquire the Corona class, which he named the Acushnet, by wreaking havoc across Forana. The collector promised no retribution uh, if the Ohnaka gang would just leave with the Corona and its flare stars. Hondo left, but not before having accepted an additional bribe. The swindle allowed Hondo command of his own personal fleet, and as the reputation and prowess of his gang grew, he was able to establish a headquarters on Florum to fit Hondo's ego. The striking circular Acushnet measures 376 meters across and had no true fore or aft section. When flying, the ship's outer section would spin rapidly around the inner section, which propelled it as well as giving it a very recognizable sound. The maximum crew for the frigate was 64, but Hondo usually used far fewer seasoned pirates to run the ship, as it was also very well armed with turbo lasers, ion cannons, point defense laser cannons, a tractor beam, and two large grappling hooks to reel in hijacked enemy vessels. The ship possessed several extendable docking tubes to latch the Acushnet onto captured ships, which were deployed when a small section of a circular hull opened up. When grounded, the ship perched on 8 landing struts resembling the tentacles of a prehistoric sea creature, which extended from the slope underside of the hull. The distinctive sound and appearance of the vast Acushnet was wholly unintentional, designed to announce that Hondo and his infamous gang had arrived. Style and purpose. The frigate's circular cockpit was spacious, but, despite the presence of many artificial lights and large illuminated computer terminals, the space remained fairly dark, with the slightly elevated captain's seat in its center. The Acushnet was fast and could take on multiple roles. Its array of weaponry could destroy ships completely or render them inoperable depending on the mission. It certainly wasn't the most powerful ship on the market, but it boasted a more than decent cargo capacity, which was used for vessels, troops, or stolen loot. Such attributes made it the perfect vessel for an organization such as Hondo's, but most importantly, the Acushnet's uniqueness appealed to Hondo's sense of style. Um, so normally these get kind of covered, but I'm going to go ahead and read this one anyway. The Corona class was a knockoff of an ancient and rare design known by historians as the Saurian cruiser. The saucer-shaped frigates had originally been presented by its manufacturer, the renowned Howard Chall Engineering, to the Confederacy of Independent Systems. But when the CIS Council decided against using the craft, they weren't able to adequately transport their droid armies. The limited run was sold off to become collector's items, or in the case of the Acushnet, the flagship of a stylish pirate leader. So if you're not aware of Hondo, first of all, you would see him in Clone Wars and also in Rebels. If you happen to go to the Star Wars area of Disney World, he is the one that will greet you when you do the Millennium Falcon ride. So you'll see him there. He's one of the things. So that is Hondo. Um, Attack on Florum. After the devastating raid by General Grievous on Hondo's headquarters on Florum, Hondo used smaller vessels such as Slave One and the Fortune and Glory to get his crew to safety. However, Hondo still had some aces up his sleeve, and while he stored the Acushnet itself out of sight from both his allies and enemies, he soon acquired 3 additional Corona-class frigates. These were used by Hondo's captains Juro, Sabo, and Goru as mobile bases, from which they patrolled the Forum system to avoid another surprise visit from the CIS. After a temporary mutiny by Juro and Goru, staged under the influence of Darth Maul and Savage Opress, the Ohnaka gang reformed and took it again to the skies in its Coronas to continue its hunt for limitless wealth. And the behind the scenes, also called Weequay saucer ships, the Corona class recalls the familiar representation of a UFO seen in many classic science fiction movies of the 1950s, including Earth vs. the Flying Saucers in 1956. The iconic design had been suggested for several Star Wars projects, planned to be developed as a Trade Federation or Alderaanian vessel, but it was ultimately left on the drawing board. The saucer shape was finally picked up with when developing Hondo Ohnaka's vessel for Dooku Captured, the 11th episode of the first season of the Clone Wars, and after its debut, the Acushnet would make multiple appearances in the series. Its final confirmed appearance was in A Test of Strength in Season 5, although other Corona-class frigates would appear afterwards. So there you go, there's that. Now let's talk about the Zillo Beast. So we kind of somewhat maybe covered some of this in previous thing when we talked about Malastare, so we won't have to kind of go through everything, I don't think. Um, Many centuries before Malastare could stake its claim as being homeworld of some of the most revered celebrities in the world of pod racing, the only fully sentient species that lived on the forest planet were early Dug settlers. For a time, this highly distinctive alien species, made so by an anatomy that saw them walk on their hands with their feet sticking out in front of their bodies, eked out a somewhat meager existence. However, over the years, the Dugs advanced their technology enough to develop what would prove to be hugely profitable mining operations, changing the course of the planet's history forever. This deep seam mining involved drilling down into Malastare's core to release and capture what became known as Malastarian fuel, a highly potential or potent gas that could power starships. The drilling did more than release saleable gas, however. It also disturbed the planet's largest native inhabitants, the towering reptilian Zillo beast. At almost 100 meters in length, the Zillo beast weighed in as one of the true titans of the galaxy, and by far the largest creature on Malastare. Semi-sentient and with a hide resistant to attacks by most weapons, including even lightsaber blades, the Zillo beast spent their early days in nests along with 2 or 3 siblings. A swift but intense period of growth followed as they were taught to survive by a parent until reaching adulthood. Solitary creatures, the beasts would then interact only when the requirement to breed became overwhelming. There was no distinction between the sexes when it came to raising their young, and depending on the circumstances, the male or the female performed this task alone while the other parent returned to its isolation. But although they were usually seen alone, the sheer size and appearance of even a young adult would be enough to strike fear into the hearts of any Doug settler that crossed their path. Something that happened more and more as the aliens expanded their mining operation to intrude on the Zillo beast habitat. Agitated by the drilling, the Zillo beasts rose up to plague the Doug population with relentless attacks, devouring any settlers they came across. A great many Dougs were killed by the mighty creature until it was discovered that the Malastarian fuel was toxic to the Zillo beasts. With this in their arsenal, the Dougs swiftly gained the upper hand, brutally hunting the monsters down to the point of extinction. It was widely believed that the Dougs had rid Malastare of the Zillo beasts forever, and the peace and security that was established on the planet led to a period of prosperity that saw humans and most prominently Gran arrive to boost the world's economy further. However, the presence of precious Malastare fuel on the planet would go from a blessing to a curse as it became the focal point of a fierce battle between the Galactic Republic and the Confederacy of Independent Systems in the early stages of the Clone Wars. The Battle of Malastare raged across the planet, laying much of it to waste. But the worst was yet to come. With the Separatists starting to dominate the fight, an increasingly desperate Supreme Chancellor Palpatine agreed to the use of experimental proton bomb that rendered the droid army standing against the Republic clone inoperable, but it also bore a vast sinkhole into the ground, awakening the terror of the local population and clone troopers alike, a long dormant Zillo beast. The beast was subdued and taken to Coruscant, where it was put through a series of scientific tests. Unfortunately, it managed to break free from captivity and run amok through the galactic capital. To stop its rampage, the Chancellor turned to the Malastarian fuel, engulfing much of the city in order to kill the beast. Rumor abound that Palpatine had been working on a secret project to clone the creature, but it was widely believed that, finally, the last of the Zillo beast was dead. The presence of high potent and hugely profitable natural resource always served as a boost to any planet, and Malastare and its reserves of Malastarian fuel was no different. First mined from the planet core by Doug settlers, the world went from strength to strength, its economy and population swelled. At least once the native Zillo beasts were thought to have been wiped out by the galactic trade in the commodity. Movie monster, part of the behind the scenes here. It is not just in its name and appearance that the Zillo beast pays homage to Godzilla, the classic Japanese movie monster that first appeared in 1954. Both creatures are raised from the depths of an enormous explosion. Both Godzilla and the Zillo beast are forces of nature. Both are semi-sentient and both go on destructive rampages. One difference, though, is that while Godzilla is viewed as hero and villain, the Zillo beast is neither, and it is left open as to whether the beast was fulfilling a vengeful prophecy in its attack on Malastare. A huge fan of the Godzilla movies since childhood, supervising director of the Clone Wars Dave Filoni was determined to include a supersized kaiju in the show. With the creation of the Zillo beast, he got his wish. There you go, there's that. Now we get to talk about the main sensor rectenna. So that works out well because of the fact that I just got done working on it. So yeah, we've got that working out well, I'd say. One of the most visible external signs of the Millennium Falcon was no ordinary tramp freighter, was the large rectenna sensor dish mounted on the forward port side of the upper hull, opposite the cockpit. Its ability to detect trouble at long distances was key to helping Han Solo avoid unwanted entanglements with Imperial officers or officials and rival smugglers. However, the Falcon's circular rectenna was swept away when it struck a bulkhead girder in a conduit tunnel during the dash through the superstructure of the second Death Star at the Battle of Endor and had to be replaced with a smaller one. Range and sensitivity. Rectennas are commonly installed on YT-1300 light freighters, but CEC standard rectangular model sensor is much smaller than the military-grade circular dish that was mounted on the Falcon. Purely in terms of area, the latter was some 75% larger, but its capability was also in a wholly different league. It was linked to the Fabritech ANQ51 sensor array computer that controlled the ship's active and passive sensors, short-range target acquisition equipment, ship-to-ship transmitters, and jamming systems. Rectenna design. The rectenna is an abbreviation for rectifying antenna, which describes a device that converts electromagnetic energy into electric pulses. The main dish of the Falcon's rectenna is a parabolic reflector. That means that signals coming straight at the dish will bounce off towards the small receptor node in the center. Similarly, signals transmitted from the central aerial are all focused towards outwards in a tightly directed beam. The rest of the structure consists of the frame that angles the dish towards its target and carries the signal processors and amplifier. Standing 4.5 meters high, that's pretty freaking high. The rectenna's range stretched out for more than 1.5 light seconds. The dish was mounted on a steerable double A-frame whose whole base rotated through 360 degrees to sweep the entire area around the Falcon, while two attitude adjuster servos were used to rotate the dish to angle up at different altitudes above the plane of the ship's hull. Used together, these controls meant that the rectenna could scan or transmit signals across the hemisphere, extending out 500,000 kilometers above the ship. Of course, it was impossible for beams to penetrate the hull, and the dish could not be depressed below a line slightly above the horizontal. So it was necessary to roll the ship to cover the area below it. Similarly, the offset location of the cockpit means that all YT-1300s have a large blind spot. To minimize this, the regular pilots would become used to putting the ship into a slow left-hand roll when making a close approach and docking or when coming under heavy fire. The Falcon's large rectenna made its blind spot much bigger than usual. Fabritech is a long-established leading manufacturer of sensors and comm devices, ranging from small handheld comm links to the largest ship-mounted equipment. Based on Fabrin in the expansion region, the company has an inviolable uh, reputation for quality and durability and was a major supplier to both sides of the Galactic Civil War. Behind the scenes, back to basics. One of the last times the Millennium Falcon is seen in the original trilogy during the daring assault on the second Death Star in the cinematic Battle of Endor, scene from Return of the Jedi. In the scene, the craft's distinctive round rectenna is struck from the hull as Lando Calrissian flies into the narrow conduit tunnels of the battle station to attack its reactor core. By the time the iconic ship is seen in 2015, the Force Awakens set some 3 decades after Return of the Jedi. It is no longer in the possession of Han Solo, having been stolen and fallen into disrepair, sitting unused in a junkyard on Jakku. One of the differences immediately noticeable from the earlier films is that Solo's custom-built round sensor dish has been replaced with a more standard model rectangular rectenna. So that is everything in this issue. So again, this time we went through and uh, we went ahead and installed everything. Uh, we built up the rectenna as we've seen here. So obviously it still needs to be painted. So I will do that, and I'll be masking off the bottom to make sure that happens. And so this will get masked off and painted. I'll do that off camera. Um, what I'll have to do is just make sure that as I paint it, I can still move it. So I don't know how I'll do that. I might, because if I handle it too much, then I'll be wiping off the paint and stuff, but I'll figure something out. So maybe I'll paint the bottom first, make sure it moves, and then I'll paint the top and, back and forth and all that kind of stuff. All right. So that's everything in issue 72. In issue 73, again, we're going to get some more framework to go with the framework that we got last time, and some more hull pieces, as well as a bunch of screws. So we'll see what we're going to be putting together next time. All right. That's it for now. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching, and may the force be with you always.